Unmute. Uh, Hope everybody's doing good. Robin Black. Well, our names are here. I was going to say Robin Black and Mallory Woods and over there, Rich Chow, but our names are sitting there, so that's who we are. But we're basically three dudes who every Wednesday get together and talk about martial arts. There's very little drama as humanly possible. There's very little conflict and controversy as possible. Guys, give me your initial thoughts before I go over these crazy topics we discussed or briefly said let's talk about. Now, what's happening?
Well, it's my favorite day of the week. Having that holiday off on Monday, I'd actually forgotten today was Wednesday. And then when I was getting myself together and thinking, oh, that's right, I get to talk to Rob Rich, it turned into a good day. So I'm looking forward to it. This is my favorite part of the week right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Always look forward to these. And I got to say, Robin, you said we won't be controversial. I don't know about that.
That's a good point.
We might some of the thoughts and views expressed here may ruffle some feathers and get people. But we're just here to get people just thinking differently. Perhaps I think from the beginning we all agreed we didn't want to do what everyone else is doing, and just cover current events and topics. I think there's so much in our world of martial arts, old is new, as we've been saying, and a lot of things we can look to the past to keep us enlightened here in the present. And yeah, man, here we are again. Let's see what happens, huh?
Yeah. I mean, you make a good point though. Like, controversy doesn't have to just be like, oh my God, did you hear that John Jones's coach left him or whatever?
Right.
Controversy happens literally by going, I think this guy's a great fighter, and I think he's really good at kung fu. And somebody's like, bullshit, this guy's the GOAT. This is the nature of humanity right now. Is we do all sort of our own opinions feel important to us until we remind ourselves, maybe, or if we can remind ourselves, my opinion is really kind of dumb and is rudimentary and basic and important only to me, and I don't need to defend it at all costs.
Right.
I
got something that's not controversial at all, and there's a question that came in from Ian Marr.
Is there a Bink sweatshirt? There's a Bink t-shirt. It's at shoprobinblack.com. But sweatshirt's a good idea. It's getting to be winter. I live in Canada.
Winter is coming.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. But yes, shoprobinblack.com. I got that. This podcast, we call it Love of Martial Arts or For the Love of Martial Arts, or we don't know exactly yet. But if we ever get a permanent name, we'll make sweatshirts of that. We'll make like 25 of them and just send them out in one day. Here's a few topics that we talked about. We'll go over. We literally have kind of a hard out today of only an hour, which sort of sucks, but it kind of will force us, parameters can be a really good thing. 5-minute rounds, that's a parameter. Right. You can't kick the head of a down opponent. That's a parameter. Like we have some today. So here's some things. We're not all obsessed with what's the next fight or what was the last fight, but we did just fucking see a pretty great fight. Like one of the most enjoyable, sitting there consuming fighting, going, oh my God, this is all the reasons I love this. So,
and you don't know which way it went. Was it going to go this way? Or was it going to go that way?
Yeah, and we'll discuss that. What makes a great fight? Obviously, we ask 1,000 people who watch Fury versus Wilder. 997 of them are not assholes, and they'll be like, that was a great fight. What makes a great fight? To answer that, I think we will also, it'll be about the individual. So what makes a great fighter? While we're at this, and maybe we'll start with this, I think Mal's probably got some photos. People have seen it. Body, like one of the things you will hear, I said it this last weekend when I was commentating in Amsterdam. Somebody had a crazy body, and the guy said, it's not a bodybuilding contest. And I said, true, but your body is a representation of some of the work you have done. We'll talk about that. While we're at it, big, small, flyweight, light, heavyweight, they're different. We talked about regional flavors. Rich mentioned this, which country has the best fighters. There will be controversy from whatever we say here. The last two, whether we get to them or not, they'll remain for next week. MMA in the Olympics, which is a great topic, and then even beyond that, 10, 20, 50 years, right? So let's start with what makes a great fight, what makes a great fighter. But Mal, I think you got some photos, yeah?
Yep,
A
let's
lot
go
of
ahead and
people saw
share.
these.
Let's go ahead and just share the screen. I'll just go ahead and throw this on up. This is just Googling Tyson Fury's name. So let's just start off with, now this is an interesting one because we know that Tyson Fury was heavy, and he said, he brought himself back from this weight to the rather large weight that he fought at this past weekend. However, what struck me on this topic is, again, I was following you doing your commenting this weekend, and you said, hey, like it or not, this is a championship body. And I thought that was really interesting because we're not shooting movies here. If you're shooting movies, Wilder's got the better body. He's got the frame. He's got the muscles and everything. Tyson Fury looks like he rolled out of one or two Dunkin' Donuts here and there, but this guy will knock your head off. Yeah. And he's got skill.
Yeah. So tell me what you think, and then Rich, your thoughts.
That's peak performance right there. That's what I see. Look,
that's a good one.
I'm reminded of Fedor, right?
100%, 100%.
I mean, two of my favorites, Tyson Fury. He just keeps winning us over, right? The guy is just he's one of one, and since we're talking about kind of being all show and some guys are just, they look the part, but they don't necessarily fight the part. Fedor and Fury are two great examples of guys that just, you probably wouldn't bet on them if you were if you knew nothing about them and you were a casual fan, or maybe even someone with a trained eye. If you knew nothing about them and you looked at two guys, you might not put your money down on the dude love handles, right? Let's just be honest.
100%.
For example, for many years I didn't watch Fedor. I was more 1-3 letter organization specific, but as I begin to watch him more, and especially as you see Fedor on like interview day or wherever, he looks like he's really going to go in and substitute teach for middle school. He's wearing the sweater. He's very calm demeanor. And then, you take his shirt off. You're like, this is the guy that they called the last emperor. And then you see why. It's an incredible, almost a transformation, almost Clark Kent Superman type of thing. But that's where our eyes deceive us, that we think a champion or someone in martial arts or a boxer or a fighter is supposed to be clean cut and veins bulging, this, that, and the other. But yet you see what we got last Saturday.
So I've got a thought on the body specific, but I want to ask you this, Rich. I know if I were to say Scott Coker's friends with Fedor, I think that's accurate. I think I've sort of seen them together, and whether I can say Rich Chou, my friend Rich is friends with Fedor, I don't know if that's fair, but you certainly know him better than 99.9% of humans, even in the fight business, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's accurate.
So I want to ask you this. This is fairly related, but I go to take a picture with Fedor, and he's like this.
Yeah.
And I took the picture and I looked at it. I'm like, this is the greatest picture ever. This is so good. And I never take a picture with anybody. I'm not interested, right? I'm like, this rules. Does Fedor know that rules? Like, does he have that sense of humor to understand that it would be really cool to play the part of Fedor like that?
Yeah, I think he does. He's one of those guys that I think he's definitely in on the joke, so to speak. I definitely think he knows a lot more English than he would lead you to believe, right? There's just some guys that are like that, right? Yep. They pretend like they don't know English, and they're just always, they're certainly taking it all in and very aware of the situation. And I think Fedor falls, under that category. But yeah, sometimes you want. It's all part of the act, right? It's all part of the character, I should say, and the gimmick, so to speak, for our pro wrestling. If there are any, that's what we want, right? That's the experience in the moment you want. I've had a few over the years that have played out like that. where I was kind of in touch with the character, and it's way more fun. Yeah. It's the experience I think you would want.
That's exactly what he gave me and everybody else who took photos with him. And I was just thinking, he's got to know this is exactly what we want, right? But as far as like Fedor's body or Tyson Fury's body, I tend to, my life is better because I study martial arts and I learn things from watching martial arts and think about them. And this has made my life better. And I've always, or very often, that's what I'm kind of looking for in the message, right? And I think it's really important. We spend a lot of time, people spend a lot of time looking at something, and they would be like, and I don't mean to be this old guy, but if you were born in 2000, you kind of think you could just sort of do what Mark Cuban does, or whomever. Maybe you would also be as good a fighter as Fury. If you aren't, you think that that's some genetic code or something. You don't always realize that there is a process and these things are gradual and they're relative. Tyson Fury's body isn't supposed to be compared to Wilder's to understand this. Tyson's body is compared to what Tyson would look like if he didn't work hard.
Yeah.
And if we make that comparison, all of a sudden we begin to understand. I don't have to look like John Cena. I have to compare me to what I would look like if I didn't do Muay Thai today, or if I ate shittier, or if I didn't sleep as well, or I drank too much beer. Do you know what I mean? Our lesson isn't, well, look, anyone with a dad bod could be Tyson Fury. The lesson is Tyson Fury should be compared to, Tyson Fury is an example of what and people talk about his genetics. His genetics are not all great. He would be a 350-pound out-of-shape man if he didn't work out so hard that he became a 280-pound dad bod man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a reflection of the work compared to the beginning of the clay, a fit with the genetic expectation of the body. Tyson Fury looks like what he looks like, and we don't compare him to Wilder. We compare him to Tyson Fury without the work.
Yeah, definitely. And just a couple notes on that. Couple thoughts. It is heavyweight, right? We've talked about heavyweight MMA and heavyweight boxing. I'll throw another name in there of somebody who is an all-time great, who just doesn't look the part, is Daniel Cormier, right?
Yeah,
100%,
yeah, true.
right. It's like they look like the everyday man. They look like like you said, they are the epitome of the dad bod that is able to that has the technique, the ability to just high fight IQ, and they're excellent. But I do think we do need to mention that they are heavyweights and it's different. Like I think when you get to the lighter weights, the guys look the part. I think at heavyweight you can get away with it, so to speak. At the lighter weights, if you look at, for example, 50, from 35 up until really 170, man, those guys are all the elite guys. All look, they might not be extremely muscular, but they're all in great shape, right? But yeah, as Tom Green said, that's why we love these guys even more, Fedor, DC, Fury, because they're like us. They're closer to the everyday person than some of these other guys who are superheroes, right? Like when you think Uberim, right? Alistair K1, right? Alistair, that's a superhero.
Mal said, just Google that and put it on the screen. Google Overeem K1 World Grand Prix.
We cannot relate to that guy. You know what I mean? Very few can. That's a superhero, and we certainly love our superheroes and need those, but there's something about the everyday man excelling and being the best that is just cool.
It is true. Cormier is no longer fighting. He's training people and he's in the gym, but you see him. Yeah, come on. like that literally is a Marvel cover.
It's a superhero. Uberim.
Yeah.
Don't forget he fought Chuck Liddell at 205 at one time.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a completely different thing. But while we're on this topic, we were talking about that, by weight, right? So, Cormier, you see him because I know he's coaching and of family members and stuff and people around you. He's bigger because he's not training like that, right? So Cormier, who was the 205 champion of the world, should be compared to Cormier today, a dad, a broadcaster,
Mhm.
a guy who works on ESPN, whatever. That's how you compare Dan Cormier. You don't compare him to John Jones. That's not the point,
Right.
you know.
You're right.
But it's neat. It's I'm, you know, it. Who would have thought? This again off topic, but you know, I don't even know if I want to go here. But just off the top of my head, you look how where lives go, and Dan is getting a lot of things. Appears to from a distance be getting a lot of things right, and then the guy who beat him twice appears to be going through dips, hard to navigate periods of his life that are probably damaging to a lot of other people. So yeah, it's weird. It's weird how that goes, but maybe that's another reason we kind of relate to these regular guys. There's
Yeah.
something in that striving, that sort of obsessive, that Lance Armstrong striving that creates, that's somehow connected to this. But athletic and artistic differences by weight. Um, you know, when we've sat and watched, Mal, you're a 5'10" heavyweight, right, Mal, or five
I,
foot nine
I
heavyweight?
appreciate the extra height, but I am a mere 5'6". Uh,
You're a 5'6" heavyweight.
5'6" heavyweight. So I am the Daniel Cormier, but much shorter. So not 5'10", but
Yeah,
yeah, a little bit, coming a little bit shorter.
yeah. So 5'6" heavyweight. At your lightest, when you competed, were you 180 pounds? What were you?
Lightest starting out competing coming in from college was 129, super lightweight.
Whoa,
So made my
whoa.
way through all divisions in
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
and super lightweight was a stretch in terms of trying to
yeah.
live and stay at that weight.
Hmm.
It was not fun.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting thing because when you've done that, you can feel how different the bodies move. So when when we go, Rich, you've got 135 pounders on fight number 6, and you got heavyweights on fight number 7. Just and you're sitting at the cage side, off the top of your head. Audience that watches has a general idea. What are the broad strokes differences in the way that they do martial arts and move their bodies?
I think with the smaller guys, you expect a much more technical fight with a higher pace.
Yeah.
Heavyweight fighting period can be very ugly, as we've seen, especially in MMA. I've had a couple high level coaches that have coached some of the greatest heavyweights in the history of the game tell me that it is easier to become a heavyweight champion.
Mm-hmm.
Less competitors and less skill.
Yeah. Yeah. I can win three times and be the heavyweight champion, and 2 of them could have been just I hit him and it worked.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I took a guy down and he ain't getting up. Yeah. Whereas I think in some of the other weight classes, there's just and for different reasons. I think there are more competitors. There's a deeper pool, right, for some of the lighter, especially when you go to like 35 and 45. That's like we're talking about kind of the average person, right? So there's a lot more than heavyweights. But I just think overall, what do I expect out of lighter guys, smaller guys? More technique, more conditioning, and more just a higher pace of fighting.
When I'm looking at it now, and even when I'm commentating and stuff, like over time, I've literally started to think of them all kind of almost as different sports, really, or at least different things within the same sport. And a buddy of mine from Ireland, when I was in Ireland and I was doing a one-man show there, and we were around fighting, we were hanging out the whole time. And you know how we do sometimes, where you just keep thinking into different layers and different stuff. And he started telling me about rugby, a lot about rugby, and how body type dictates the position you play. And not just because big guys can do this job, but smaller guys can do this job. And they actually play different positions and do the sport differently. And I look at it like that, and there are no 5'10" gymnasts, right? There's none. There's,
No.
maybe there is at some club level, but at the world championship level in every country in the world, they just don't have any 5'10" gymnasts. 5'5" guys who are stocky with a particular body can do that thing.
Yeah, there's probably no 5'8"
high jumpers,
jockeys,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Be a certain, Robin, something you said just earlier. It's almost a different sport. The lighter guys, the heavier guys. I was chatting with John Kavanaugh prior to the Johnny Walker fight. Johnny trains with him, 205er, a big dude, probably walks at 230. And I was asking him that because John's a smaller guy, and most of the guys in his gym are smaller guys. Like Johnny might be the biggest guy. And I asked him about that, and his exact words were, "It's almost like a different sport."
Yeah,
but you're exactly right. He mentioned that preparing Johnny, and just the training, the techniques, everything is different as compared to James Gallagher or Conor.
How he learns, what he'll face, what he has access to, the speed at which the whole thing. Yeah, it's a really neat thing, and. The weird this is going to slightly meander off topic. Weirdly, it's going to meander towards this topic without doing it intentionally. But when we talk about fighting, sometimes we get this weird thing, and I had this in my head too, because I'm always trying to figure out not just what it is and what's happening, but the best ways to describe it, because that's at the root of my job, right? I can't just keep saying the same things over and over again. And we say that these fighters, especially in mixed martial arts, we say they're decathletes, but they're not decathletes at all. In fact, a decathlete, it would be if there was such a thing as a decathlete who, instead of doing hurdles and then later doing a javelin and then also doing a high jump, he was high jumping and hurdling while throwing a javelin.
Doing all the above.
You know what I mean?
Now I'm watching.
Exactly. While running a marathon or whatever, 800-meter high jumping over hurdles while throwing a discus. Like, it isn't all of these. Can one guy do all of these separate things? It's, can one guy blend all of these things so that they're only one thing? And that aspect, where when you start to really think about it, is that why the best pure fighting actually may be 155 and 170, or now maybe 145, 155, where the ability to be fast and technical and spring up, but strong enough to hold down and hit really hard. And that blend of doing them all together finds this pocket that's George St. Pierre or whomever, right? Like that middle pocket of it.
Also, if you think about it, one of the things that's a bit challenging there is that, so we have our 125ers, 135ers, 145, then you're lightweight, and then you have this jump to 170. So I know we kind of discussed this about weight and everything. There's a huge difference, even though not really in weight in terms of figures, but there's a huge difference between the size and shape of humans that you're going to get in those two divisions. If you find yourself a little bit shorter, then maybe you need to cut the weight and go down to 55. If you find yourself maybe a little bit taller and everything, maybe stay at 170. But like Rich says, you got guys that are they fight in this division, but yet you walk around 20 pounds heavier, obviously, because you're not within training camp. But those divisions and that restriction restricts where you're going to be at, and it will restrict your output, how you look at fights, how explosive you are, your knockout power, everything else, because of the limitations of the weight. And I think it's just weird that we have that jump in those divisions. I know a lot of people have wanted the 165 division. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I saw that synth is funny.
But yeah, you gotta have a good high crotch. I mean, there's lots of other cool things we can talk about today. But while we're on the topic, every body type, like we've touched on this before, and this will be something I'm sure we'll talk about a million times. There's a jiu-jitsu for every body type and age and size. And there's a guy I know is one hand that does jiu-jitsu. He's a great black belt. A 5'6" heavyweight will have particular advantages in some ways and disadvantages in others, and the dynamics between people. But there's a martial art for every body type.
Yeah. And going back to what we've talked about in previous episodes, it's really, you can create that style, you know. Short guys just ain't going to be able to play ball, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not going to happen, but you can find your own style and have success in martial arts. So again, just another one of the beauties of what we love to do.
I think this is a good point right up here for Vulcan. So this is for rugby, and it's funny because so I know very little about rugby, very limited knowledge. I can appreciate the athleticism and also the fact that these guys are not wearing any pads and they're running around flying around that field. Yeah, you sometimes, like you said in this statement, you know, you get laughed at. Like, wait a minute, you're playing what position? You're gonna do what? And you know, a guy will perform. That has been said a lot in the NFLs with running backs, that guys that are 5'7", 5'8", and they're getting in probably one of the most difficult positions on the field where you're going to take a lot of damage, a lot of hits. But yet there are people that excel at that position because of quickness or maybe readability or durability, being able to get through holes and knock a linebacker on his butt with the speed that they generated. So just because you come in that package doesn't mean you can't fit that role. I do believe also it's within, saying it been also for the fighter. You know, if you got a guy that's got a lot of dog in him and he's going to fight, maybe the guy that he's fighting has a little bit easier, you know, takes a little bit lighter. But there's a guy who says, this is the last thing for me. I either fight or I don't eat. And that's going to be a hard fight across the ring. Yeah.
And you can, you know, there are exceptions to everything. You can, so I saw that actually could be Diego, who I chat with on Facebook. So I texted Diego Sanchez right now. I'm sending him the link. If he feels like jumping in, I just sent him the link. I don't know if that's Diego, but it very well could be.
Let me see.
We chat on Facebook sometimes. And I do work for some bare knuckle already in England and stuff, and I will definitely do more. But that could be Diego, so I just sent him the link. Do you think a lightweight could win? This is actually a fun question. Do you think a lightweight could win against a heavyweight, if that makes sense, or defeat a heavyweight? You know, let's take a second on this. Like, size matters, right? Of course it matters. But if there is you know, if Ben Henderson fights a blue belt with 2 kickboxing matches, that's 1-1, an amateur who's a heavyweight, Ben Henderson will defeat that heavyweight, right? Skill matters too.
Yeah,
you know,
I can see that.
Do we think a lightweight top 10 could beat a heavyweight top 10? Not often. But do we think a lightweight top 10 could beat the 600th best guy in Nebraska who wasn't a college wrestler? Yeah, we do. You know?
Just a note on that. Years ago, K1, Kalklai and Mighty Mo. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
The open tournament.
Yeah.
I think it can, every now and then, yes, it can happen. And that was at an elite level, right? That was a crazy finish. One of my
minimum man at 190 pounds in Japan beat some 260 pounders too.
Correct.
Hoist beat Akibono.
Yeah, that's right.
Akibono being, you know, probably over 400 pounds.
Barnett fought a Pancrase great who took him to the limit, Josh Barnett. I'm going to have to, you guys talk for a second. I'm just going to have to.
So throwing that around also with you being familiar, Rich, BJ Penn used to fight all the way up to
Rich was there at that show, right?
And down to lightweight, as we said, and he'd even been in 145, you know.
Rich, were you there when he fought Lyoto?
Yeah, I was with him. We were in Japan. I was in the corner. And yeah, he weighed in, I want to say maybe 190, and Lyoto was like 225 or so.
Mm-hmm. So I have to ask the question. I've seen BJ in passing. I was at an event, I saw him, and usually when I see someone like that, I'm like, you know, He looks exactly like I expect him to, because I've only seen him in combat sports. How is BG looking at 195? I mean, it's like, for me to imagine him at 195, I've never seen that fight with Lyoto, but like, I know he needed to put on the weight to compete with somebody like that, but how did he actually look?
To do it.
Yeah, I know he's super competitive.
Yeah, he was. I mean, clearly that wasn't his peak. Optimal weight.
Mm-hmm.
I think he showed that later on in his career, but I think since he wanted to fight bigger guys, and he was always in just pursuit of these challenges, and that's what makes him special and unique. But
running for governor.
Yeah,
running for governor.
Cool.
But
Hawaii.
Yeah, him at 190. Although it was a great fight,
it was.
And I actually thought, back then they used to give if I remember correctly, back then, if you were the smaller guy and it went to a decision, I believe they gave you the win, but they did it on this occasion. Now we can talk about why and why that didn't happen. But yeah, if you're the bigger man and you didn't finish the smaller guy, they gave the smaller guy the win normally.
That's right. So I looked it up. I was trying to remember it because I commentated it in English. I don't think the one I did in English is on the internet, but I'm sure the Japanese version is. Yuki Kondo fought Josh Barnett. And Yuki Kondo was a genius of combat, but he did his best at 170 pounds. Josh is an enormous heavyweight. And he did very, very well until Barnett beat him in the third. There are many historical examples of the smaller guy winning around or doing very well, and we talk about old is new again. Do not be surprised if we'll be seeing this more, because as you sort of see in this celebrity fighting and stuff like that, suddenly things like weight class are less important because the skill difference is larger or less relevant, or Aaron Carter fought a guy who was way 20, 30 pounds heavier than him recently. I mean, I don't know why I'm even acknowledging that, but he, so what I'm saying is you're kind of seeing that this is, these types of things are going to be seen more.
Skill matters, certainly does.
Yeah, it certainly does. So let's move over to this. What makes a great fight? But I think let's come back to that and just say, well, certainly you need great fighters to make a great fight. That'll not be 100% of the time, but that will be preferred.
Sure.
That will be preferred. And so let's start with that. What actually makes a great fighter?
So if you jump out, I'll jump out ahead of this one real quick. So in terms of a great fighter, obviously you need someone that's going to, and I'll say this with a small caveat: someone that wins is preferable, someone that is exciting, and I think you have to throw in a little bit of personality in terms of like, something that people can relate to or they jump on board. I mentioned the win part because I immediately thought of Rampage, who lost some of his stuff in pride, but everyone loved the way he fought, so he became more elevated in the eyes of the people as a favorite. And so that pushes you towards great fighter, if you're not just comparing wins and losses at this point.
Yeah. Before we go too deep in it, what the issue that always comes up with these kinds of conversations is the flaws in the question. Mm-hmm. Like, what do we even mean by great?
Right. Right. You have to question the question right away.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what do we mean by great? Rich?
Yeah. How about this? I'll say my favorite types of fighters.
Yeah.
The things that I look for, not only professionally, as a matchmaker, but just as a pure fan, because I've always been a fan first. I like guys. I don't gravitate towards a particular style as far as or art. It's just more, look, if you are able to be exciting and violent with a high skill set at a high skill level, to me, those are my favorite kind of guys. The guys who can really, to me, an exciting fight that also has technique. Those are my favorite types of fights, and therefore those are my favorite types of fighters. Guys that are violent, but also very skilled and exciting, and guys that go for it. You know, that helps. If that contributes,
it does.
To
the, it does.
Conversation.
No, I think it really does.
Because we've all seen one or the other, right? We see a slugfest that is just not. It's fun to watch, but you know, it just may not have been the best showcase of skills. And then we've seen a very high, level of skill and technique and strategy, but then the fight wasn't the most exciting. So you're appreciating it for different reasons. But when those two intersect
together,
right? It's like, oh man, now you have something for everybody, right?
Yes. I remember really enjoying Stephen Thompson fight Rory McDonald, although not a lot happened, although Stephen really messed up Rory. But I also remember being much more viscerally engaged when Rory fought Lawler.
Yeah.
Both were skilled, but Ian asks, "Are fighters born or made?" And then he gives an example, and we have seen very skilled guys that can't fight. This is a very difficult question, but I think if we were on television, the three of us were sitting at a desk wearing suits, and the producer goes in our ear, they go, "Rich," or they'd talk to us before, and they go, "Rich, what do you think?" You'd be like, "Well, I don't know. I think they're born." Okay, great. Mal, what do you think? Can you be like, "I don't know. I think they're made." Okay, great. And then
now we got to push
us to debate that. But the truth is, it's all of those things, right? It's a totality of all these things. You are the genetic code that you are. You're the environment that you had. Even people who are like, they walk into the gym and they're tough. They don't quit. They're driven. They have courage. All those things. You'd say, wow, this guy has those gifts, or he was born with it, or it's genetic. But it's still a part of who he was when he was a kid.
Right.
The 6-year-old him learned to be courageous, or the 9-year-old him developed toughness. Don't you know?
Mm-hmm. Can I address Ian's question real quick? His statement. I have seen black belts that cannot fight incredible. Yeah, you're absolutely right. 100%. To me, and we're kind of veering off into a different topic. What is a black belt? To me, a black belt, it's about knowledge and dedication, right? All of us are involved in martial arts. We all know guys that are black belts that might not be the best athletes, that it doesn't translate into competition, but they can teach a class, they can teach students, they can pass on knowledge, and that's what makes them a black belt. So there's, yes, Ian, you're right, there are competition level black belts, and then there are, kind of on the flip side, the guys that are more instructors, teachers, guys that are more dedicated and kind of more in that realm as opposed to competition, because not every black belt can fight. You're 100% correct, Ian.
Yep, 100%. That sort of toughness, gameness, ferocity, those kinds of things. I've talked to some of the guys who are the most that, or at times are the most that. Matt Brown, right? Matt Brown, you're like, okay, Matt Brown is gonna fucking show up and he's gonna fight, right? And I asked him about that, and sitting there in a podcast studio in Toronto with my buddy Ramdeen, and we're chatting with him, and I said, man, you're one of the mentally toughest guys ever. And he goes, whoa, no, I am not. I am a person, and when I'm able to perform that way, it's a result of my preparation. If I think I'm mentally tough, I'm going to go into a cage and collapse one day. If I think I'm not tough, and I'll create the toughness and armor my emotions and my mind through preparation, I will show up tough. I am not tough. My preparation makes me tough. And I was like, and this is like 2015. Like, this is way out front of this sort of trend towards this introspection that you see fighters talking about publicly. When he said that, I was actually very, very floored by how self-aware he was. And then on the other hand, Anthony Smith, who I just think the world of, and I think he's a great dude. I've had a few conversations with him for TSN and some of my work here. And I said, are you the type of guy that in these situations, against John Jones, you got up and fought, against this guy, when your teeth were out, you kept fighting? He's like, I don't know, man, I'm just wired that way. And I thought, I'm not saying he's not introspective. He just hasn't bothered to question
Why?
or dig in. Yeah, why? Where in his history was it a 6-year-old him that did a certain, that learned in a certain way? Was it something his father taught him? Was it a coach that he had? Like nobody's born that way.
Right.
I don't believe.
I
You
also
have some potential for that, but it is cultivated.
I also think that it's very interesting. The two examples you gave are guys who have nicknames of Lionheart and the Immortal. You don't get those by coming in and tripping over a mat. You earn those, and just seeing that, I can see Anthony Smith picking his teeth up and please hold these for me. I'm going to need these. Oh, how are you doing that? And Matt Brown. I mean, just what can you say about the guy? He's built to steel. And if his mindset is that what you just mentioned, that I can imagine in that moment how that floors you. You're thinking like, hey, you come in with this. He said, no. It's the preparation that makes me this way. It's what I bring to the ring. So definitely both exciting fighters. Good question from Ian too.
What do you think, Rich? Like, I mean, you've definitely seen these guys who from young seem to have that, but even some of it is something you are genetically gifted, but some of it I think has been crafted. You take that guy with that genetics and you put him in a place where he never has to test it and cultivate it, and he may not be like that. Or that woman, she Valentina kind of born that way, but she also was shot at and like in these very difficult things, like I think it's all of it.
Yeah, agree 100%. Just some observation. Like I'm gonna bring into the conversation my role with Wimp to Warrior. I will tell you that toughness can be taught and improved on. We're doing it every day with that program all over the world. That is a fact. You can get tougher, but I think the killer instinct, that's a whole separate thing, right? That ability to, and just for those that don't know, over at Wimp to Warrior, we're taking the average person, teaching them martial arts, putting them into a training camp, just helping them improve their physical and mental fitness. And we are getting people tougher. It is possible. This is great. There are several, obviously I'm biased. This is the way that we're out there advocating because we love martial arts. But I think, yes, you can get tougher, but that killer instinct, that ability to perform like that, pull the trigger, so to speak, I think that's different. I think we're talking two different things. Do you guys, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. We only have like 15 more minutes, but I just texted Antonio McKee to see if he wants to jump in here. And also and I sent him the link because he will tell you how he trained an AJ McKee at 5 and at 9 and at 12 to make him, he believes, enhance what he already sort of genetically has. But I think you're right. But even that, like Valentina, we'll use as an example. Oh, she's got a crazy killer instinct. She's in there to finish somebody. She's like cold and she's an assassin and all these things. Some of that was maybe her parents were like that and maybe that's something innate, but some of it was environmental. She lived in a world that taught her to think this way, or she needed to think that way to survive and thrive. I always feel like it's all of these things and I think that that's a good thing to realize, because wherever you are, and Wimp to Warrior and your experience there is a good one, because again, like I have seen somebody look at Tyson Fury and say, well, he was born agile. Tyson Fury wasn't born agile. He was an overweight, goofy kid. Now his family were boxers and everything, but he wasn't born agile. He became agile, and wherever you are, if you go and train, like you're exposed to these people, how long do they train, Rich, at Wimp to Warrior before they fight?
It's over 20 weeks. It ends up being 100 sessions.
So 5 months, 100 sessions.
Yeah.
Over those 100 sessions, where if there was some abstract score between 1 million and a 0, and you were 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, wherever you were, by working hard, you would expand that. You would grow that, like Tyson Fury did with his agility. And if you have a crazy father, like our friend Antonio, you can actually sort of cultivate that in your young son, like you did with AJ. You know?
Yeah, you can. It's just hard to measure these certain things, these intangibles, right? You can't measure toughness. We can measure speed, strength with different exercises and different things, but it's very difficult to determine and measure, how tough someone is, right? But anyways, go ahead, Mel.
One thing I was going to just to say that is also we're looking at Valentina version 2021 right now. What we're seeing her at, obviously, she's peaking. If we go back to first fight in the UFC, Valentina, we're dealing with a different person. If we go back to whatever previous organization, go back to her first black belt class. 3 months into her career. If you go back and look at old footage, one of the things I really enjoy doing is looking at old legend and lore of Mike Tyson and his relationship with Customato, and how in his amateur fight, he's there with the amateur headgear, knocks the guy out, and the cameras followed him out, and Tyson is emotional. He's crying. He's this, and Cuss is talking to him, and he says, "Hey, you did great and everything." Look at the highly skilled, and I think there's an argument there that Tyson was highly skilled for his time, but look at that person versus that person. It depends on when you reach them at that point in their journey in life. You're going to come with a different result.
Yeah. Yep. Thanks, Synth. It's super cool. Yeah, a bunch of people are sending us nice messages. I've been away, so it was, a lot of it is on me. We haven't been as in touch, but we'll be doing more stuff. I sent Antonio a question and Diego to join us next week because they're both in the middle of something. But let's do one more. We've still got 10 minutes, and then we'll move. Which country has the best fighters? MMA in the Olympics. That'll be our controversial one. Actually, which works great for MMA in the Olympics because now we're talking about country versus country, and then that'll lead us to this. So those three next week. Let's move along our. The flow of this goes right into if we decide what makes special competitors, what makes a great fight? And again, 99.9% of humans probably will watch Saturday night's heavyweight title fight and say, that was a great fight. Why?
I think you need both people having the particular opportunity that they could win at any moment. And for a brief time during Saturday, I believe both fighters were 1 or 2 punches away from having their hands raised. It just happened to resolve itself with Tyson Fury winning. But at one point, Deontay Wilder the narrative could have been changed, and we could be talking about the Alabama Slammer today, this, that, and the other. So I think you need the odd of both people have the potential to win, not just a puncher's chance, which is just another great way of saying that, yes, I've got a fist, you've got a fist, and if I throw it, hit you right, you're going to go to sleep. But legitimately a good chance, and that's shown in the fight.
Yeah. Rich, what about you?
I'll take it to a different place. High stakes, belts, legacy, characters, storylines. Really help contribute because there are a lot of fights out there, a lot of great fights, but I think what separates them are those things, obviously the what's at stake, right? If I told you guys were fighting out in the parking lot and the winner was going to get $1 million, it changes your opinion on what's on interest level on that fight. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to there's just 2 guys fighting outside again, but they're fighting for $1 million. And the title.
I just thought of Denny's. I'm sorry. You said 2 guys fighting. I just thought of Denny's.
I did a breakdown of a guy fighting in front of a Denny's.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Actually, it was a guy. They called him Old Head. He was like a guy, appeared to be in his 50s, and he'd been around, and some young kid. And I'll send it to you guys. It's actually, I think it was a Denny's. No, it was an Arby's. Sorry, of course it was an Arby's.
I think that still equates. I think that's still
but that's the promoter in me, just adding on to obviously what happens inside the ring or the cage, but these things that we used to promote and make a fight big and great. The other component of it, right? The build up.
I would also have to say that I'm sorry, Stephanie, right, but you don't have to have a long 5-round, 10-round, 12-round fight to make it great. I think that the AJ McKee Pitbull fight was a great fight and it contained everything that we've just talked about. On the one hand, you've got this kid who wrote himself $1 million check years ago, a dad who was training him at increments of his life, and I really wonder what he was thinking, and a perfect record. So let's not don't forget that
there's a lot going on.
What is going through his mind?
So I'm going to blend both of what you said, but before I do, Mal, can you open your thing, and are you able to put this 1-minute tweet, the video of it in our thing, and turn up the volume? I want you guys to see this. You'll laugh.
Did you send it to me by?
I sent it to you in our group chat.
Oh, okay. Give me a second to set it up. Go ahead.
The thing at one point, my tagline was Arby's. We have the Binks, which is just fucking so stupid. I can't even believe I do this for a living. But I will actually, while Mal's doing that, I'll blend them both. Like, look, that if Tyson Fury and Wilder were not, deep rivals with the lineal belt and all the other things, the heavyweight champion of the world, if it was just that fight, it would be a wonderful fight. People would be going, oh my God, did you see that fight on Saturday? That was amazing. If it was just the lineal heavyweight title of two guys who are deep, meaningful rivals in a trilogy fight forever, people would be like, man, you got to watch this fight. But when it all comes together like that, when it's just the greatest fight that's been promoted just right, where all the meaningful stuff is there, a lot is on the line, the stories are there, the personalities are there, and you have a fight where both are so deeply engaged, they're both so committed, they both are this close to losing, they're on the razor's edge, the two of them, for extended periods of time like that, then it becomes one of these ones that people talk about for weeks and months and years, and reference at the 10-year anniversary on whatever is the replacement for ESPN by then. They'll be, back in 2020. Okay, can you? I don't know if
yes,
you know
sir.
how to do
I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
Okay.
Robin Black, 1-minute breakdown. Arby's presents Fight Night Baltimore. OG Boxer versus Street Tough Steve. Steve strikes first, but OG Boxer will create that opening and stiffen Steve with the right hand. Listen, Steve, fighting is a spider web of complexity. There are thousands of variables at play in real time that the body and brain have to process to create these moments. It's not just about being a tough guy. Watch. Clearly, these two gentlemen both have some training. Steve acquires a balanced stance. OG is forward. He's aggressive. He's engaged. Now, he is susceptible to leg kicks, but Steve will open with the jab. OG flares the elbow to goaltend. You notice Steve is off balance. Maybe he's a touch overexcited, but he'll get his head moving nice, side to side, rhythmically, but that's cool. OG has some gnarly veteran tricks. Watch as he'll grab and pull down on the arm. It's misdirection. It's target acquisition, and then he'll fire off to where the head will be. Again, Steve, fighting is a spider web of complexity. There's thousands of variables that play in real time that the body and brain have to process to create these moments, you dumb motherfucker.
It's so weird. Thank you.
Well done.
We have the Binks. It's funny when you look at one like that, though. What makes it so interesting out of context? One, you got Arby's in the background, and cars are like, that looks like a movie. It looks like somebody filmed it. But it isn't. That's real life. Those two people, and it's to me, I will never analyze something that both people were not fully committed to. It's like it's mutual combat, mutually agreed combat. But you look and they're both like, setting themselves up for it. It's just a weird human experience in the middle of like Baltimore in front of an Arby's. It's just so bizarre to me that we live in a world that happened and it's sitting there and you can play with it. It's so strange.
It is what we live in. Just to keep us on point, Robin, I know you've got a tight deadline. I do wanted to bring up something that Ian brought early. Loves the format. We're still contenders. We don't have a title yet, so we're still looking for that shopping for that title of the show. You guys got some great suggestions? Please put them in the comments. We'll take them.
Yeah. Or what was karate? Was a classic lining up the karate.
Karate Steve,
neighborhood
yes.
neighborhood karate. Yeah, that one was neighborhood karate. That was weird. That one got weird too because there were 2 people filming it, and both went on the internet. So now I had 2 camera angles to be able to edit them. So strange. I don't know what kind of world we're living in. It's weird, but it allows us to analyze martial arts everywhere. That was so fast, guys. Like, this has been. I feel like it's like getting together to shoot hoops with your friends, only I don't know how to shoot hoops, and even saying it, I sound weird. But it's short. But it's fun hanging out every Thursday or Wednesday, and it's fun having people join us. I sent out some feelers right now for some guests next week. Watch for Diego Sanchez and/or Antonio McKee to join us. Lightning round. Okay, anybody got any quick questions? We got 5 minutes.
Lightning round.
Yeah.
By the way,
you guys, go ahead.
Robin, the kids, they don't say shooting hoops. I believe they say ball.
Well, you got a ball. You got ball in there.
Yeah.
That's okay. We'll get you.
So hold on. So we get together and ball. That doesn't sound.
Yeah.
But ball is life.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Somebody asked me the other day, would you rather commentate, a UFC or the Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final? And I'm like, there's like maybe one fight in a hockey game, maybe, and it's mediocre. But there's like 11 fights in fighting and no hockey, so hockey. But yeah, I don't. You guys like other sports, so you guys tell me about them and how they relate to. How I can learn something about fighting by watching other sports. Football, sometimes you learn about like military tactics.
Mm-hmm. The football also, they have brought in their linemen for martial arts, receivers for hand fighting. They even have some of the big guys doing ballet, trying to get a little bit more light on their feet. So a little crossover here and there. So it blends a little, a tad bit.
Yeah. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar trained with Bruce Lee. I mean, there's some basketball stuff in there.
This is true.
Couple things, as being a huge sports fan, most great athletes, or just most of these professional athletes, don't know how to fight. Whenever a fight does break out, you see that. And whenever a fight does break out, it's like the peak. The crowd just gets right.
They love it.
So excited. Yeah, they love it. I'm like, well, why don't you guys just watch fighting then?
Exactly.
Let's cut the middleman.
Exactly.
You're going to talk about that moment, right? Oh, remember when that fight broke out and so did this and that. And, that was crazy, and it's going to get replayed. But yet they won't watch.
They won't watch fighting. I mean, I think back about Bryce Harper, who used to play for my Washington Nationals.
Oh, yeah.
Moved on. And Harper charges the mound and throws a whiff of a punch, and just like, and then, of course, you're going to get the slow-mo with ESPN. It's like, it looks terrible.
Awful.
But then again, you have Nolan Ryan, a young guy, charged him out, and Nolan just with a simple headlock.
Robin Ventura. He did the old school. You
got to realize he thought this was such a mistake.
Who's the flying sidekick guy? Have you guys ever seen that? Yeah, a guy charges the mound and like a jumping sidekick.
I will find that out.
Yeah. Let's see if we can. I'm sure if you Google that on. Or if you search that on YouTube right now, you can probably find it. Baseball charges mound sidekick. But yeah, I remember that in the 80s. I was training Taekwondo at the time, and I was like, this is my guy.
Yeah.
Rich, do you have a favorite sweep?
I have quite a few, actually. Great question. I'll say for jiu-jitsu, because of its simplicity and effectiveness, come into my head right now, maybe the tripod sweep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. When I'm playing guard, I'll do a lot of armbar sweeps where your armbar's not going to work, but you're going to get a sweep. There's also a really, really cool thing that often seems to work. That's just a bullshit sweep, where you've got some kind of collar control and the tricep on this side, and you literally just kick the knee out. Do you know what I mean? And just collapse the side. Like there's weird little bullshit. I love little bullshit sweeps where
I've been playing that a lot with like De La Riva, because I'm so long. My coach is really pushing me to use that length. So a lot of the Lahiva
variations.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff playing from there, but just something simple that anyone can do. Tripod sweep. You can use it for MMA. BJ used it a lot.
But it also, like, if I asked you this 15 weeks ago, it's a different line of thinking, and 20 weeks from now it'll be different again. Like, that's the fun of it, I gotta go, guys. Thanks everybody for hanging, and same time next week, but we should have a little time ahead of time. We'll be able to share it a little bit more, and I'm still working on getting this to audio so we can get audio only podcasts too. But thanks everybody for hanging. You guys got any last thoughts?
Looking forward to next week, and we'll it'll be fun. Just all like
we'll get together and ball.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, see that now.
Hey, quick learner. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and thank you, Black Belt Magazine.
Exactly.